The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast. Welcome to the Timeline, a Phoenix Suns podcast. My name is Mike, here with Sam. How you doing, Sam?
Hello, sir. I'm doing pretty good. I am pretty good. How are you?
Doing well. Pretty excited for people to hear the interview that's coming up at the back half of this podcast. Would have felt a little better had the Phoenix Suns defeated the Houston Rockets, but they were really set up to fail in that game in many ways, and then came out and did not play their best in that one, but still feeling pretty good.
Yeah, shout out. I'm sure everyone can read the episode title, so I'm not spoiling anything here. Shout out to K-Ray, who came on our pod, hopped on for the first time, and it's been a few years, so it was great to talk to him. He's just been absolutely awesome with us, and I don't know. Upgrade over the Colin Gillespie interview a week ago. Did we have to one-up ourselves somehow, or are we not pinning them against each other like that?
Oh, yeah, pin them against each other, and I don't even know where we would go from there, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just kidding. Yeah, we'll have Jordan Ott on the pod next week, so don't worry. Do you want to start with, do you want to talk more specifically, by the way, just so everyone knows, the K-Ray portion of this episode was recorded a couple hours before the Houston game.
True.
Might be slightly out of date in a couple of ways, but mostly not. But would you like to talk about a loss to Houston yesterday that I think, in spite of all the injuries on both sides, actually, or the unavailable players on both sides, was a highly anticipated game and was a chippy game? Right, was a very chippy game, actually. No ejections or anything, but just in terms of the energy and the force that both sides played with was intense.
Multiple flagrants, yeah.
Yep, flagrants, technical fouls.
Yeah.
What do you make of the Houston Rockets, even without Kevin Durant?
They're pretty awesome, dude. I don't want to start this podcast by praising another team, but the reality is, they are really good. They just have so many fast, strong, long players who play pretty smart as well. If you have that combination of players in today's league, you can do a lot with it, especially if you play fast and shoot a lot of threes, which they're not shooting a lot of threes when KD plays, but KD's playing in those games. In this game without KD, they shot over 30, so they were really putting him up.
Yeah, even 30 isn't that much in the modern NBA, but it is probably a little bit more than if KD had played.
I think they're dead last, right? They're dead last when he does play. So
they're dead last, but they're top two. I want to say, at least when I looked this up a couple days ago, they were top two in 3-point percentage. Very
I think they're number one
team. Yeah, very classical kind of Kevin Durant stat there. And we talked about it a little bit in the summer of just as the trade was going down, well, okay, the Kevin Durant experiment, it's over in Phoenix. We don't have to relitigate everything that happened, but we were talking about, how would you build around Kevin Durant in a way that actually works and suits his play style now that he's in his late 30s and just can't attack the rim like he used to. Putting together a team of smart players who are super long and can kind of suffocate you defensively, but perhaps even more importantly, can grab every single offensive rebound.
Yeah. You're going to win the possession battle, right?
Right,
yeah,
and that's something battle. Phoenix was just never able to do as part of the Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal era. Look, I look at
and
this
they'll run back in transition for him.
I look at this Houston team. We're going to play both Denver and OKC coming up, and I just think those two teams are so good. And Houston is pretty good, but I think those two teams are so good. But so they have a lot of stock in their ability to try and compete and maybe win this year, but we'll see how they do. They're a good team. Amin Thompson, continues to take a little bit of a leap year over year, and I thought he was really impressive against us. He finished with 28 points, 8 rebounds, 28 points, 8 assists, and his ability to create just in like the short mid-range little floater area now to kind of bump into you, create a little bit of space, and then either finish it off himself or make a play from there. He's using his body in really impressive ways now.
Just like never losing his balance. Yeah, the thing I think that stood out to me about them in particular was they just have so many guys that can do things athletically. Like there was a point where Isaiah Livers had the ball under the rim on the Suns side of the court, and Jabari Smith Jr. just ripped it away from him and then just took off with the ball down the court, beat everyone to the rim, and scored at the rim in transition. And to be able to be the furthest away from the opposite side of the court, strong enough to rip the ball away from Isaiah Livers, who's no slouch himself, a very strong dude, and still get to the rim and finish in transition before anyone else is able to get there. And he didn't even play that well. Like, he wasn't bad or anything, but I really thought Jabari Smith Jr. had a chance to kill us, and he didn't end up being one of those guys. It was all amen. And I guess Aaron Holiday. But just having, like, how many guys on that team could do that? There's quite a few guys on that team that could do something like that. And a bunch of them didn't even play in this game.
Tari Eason is another one I think of who
Dorian Finney-Smith. Yeah.
Dorian Finney-Smith, who wasn't playing in that game. But of course, we're 5 minutes in now. I do want to steer this in the direction of the Suns as the Resident Suns podcast. We were missing a lot of talent too. I'm not going to say, that's a team that we play 3 more times, including once pretty soon in December. So hopefully we get some guys back healthy for that matchup, and hopefully KD is there too, and we can see what it looks like when both sides are healthy. But certainly I think it's fair to say you could feel the lack of personnel, the lack of kind of offensive talent at this point for the Suns. I mean, it's one thing for Jalen Green to be out, as he has been for basically this entire season. But when it's Jalen Green and Grayson Allen and Mark Williams not playing the second night of a back-to-back, and Ryan Dunn, that's a lot of talent coming out of the Suns lineup, and you could really feel it. You could really feel it in the way that they were able to wall up on Devin Booker in this game.
Yeah. 4 guys who've started games this season missed the game. Yeah, and I think in particular they talked about, apparently Ime before the game talked to the broadcast crew. They mentioned it in the Peacock broadcast that Ime talked about how the Minnesota Timberwolves guarded Devin Booker and how they were going to try to do something pretty similar. And I would say they even cranked it up even more. And that's just completely ignoring Jordan Goodwin. Poor guy on the outside really started out kind of rough, shooting wide open threes and missing them, completely leaving him, and then really kind of ignoring Nick Richards a little bit too, because Nick Richards, who I want to talk about in a bit, just didn't really need to be guarded either. And that means Devin Booker, every time he dribbled beyond the three-point line, was facing a wall of 3 giants. And I mean, that's hard. That's really difficult to do anything against that.
So, I mean, we need to underscore the problem and kind of break it down one by one. But I guess we start by just pointing out, it was a rough week for Devin Booker. And that's probably what Suns fans, it's at the front of mind for them. And certainly I see a lot of discussion about it.
Yeah, definitely.
On our Discord. I don't even know if I want to plug the Discord this week. But, I've seen people talking about Devin Booker. And, I would point out, first of all, the Suns have won 3 of the past 4 games.
Mm-hmm.
In these 4 games, Booker has been bad. He had 18 points against Houston on 5 of 13 shooting. Before that, he had 24 and 7 assists against San Antonio on 7 of 18 shooting. He had 16 points, 10 assists, and 9 turnovers on 4 of 18 shooting against Minnesota. That's the one you're talking about there, the classic Minnesota performance. I compared him to Steve Nash in a sarcastic way on Twitter after that one, saying, what's the problem? 16 and 10, those are Steve Nash numbers. And had literally at least 200 replies of people taking me seriously, which should never, ever happen online.
Yeah. I mean, I had a very similar experience online recently, so yeah, I relate.
And
about Chris Paul, funny enough.
Yeah, and he also had 19 points, 5 assists, 6 of 13 shooting in the win against Portland. That one only had to play 29 minutes. They won that game.
That one was a good game for him.
They won that game pretty easily, but just to say, statistically speaking, it's been a bad week for Devin Booker. In terms of the personnel issues, though, I mean, it's just stacking up more and more. It's one thing for Jalen Green to be out. Grayson Allen had played so well for this team as a pressure release valve for Book, specifically as a pressure release valve who can stand in the slot, one pass away. And not only has Grayson been unafraid to take pull-up threes and unafraid to drive. I don't have the current drive statistics on this team, but I imagine Grayson is still second in terms of drive volume. But also a guy who... Maybe
Colin Gillespie has passed him, but yeah, it's got to be close.
It's possible. I mean, I still think Colin's probably not playing enough minutes. I'll look it up after this. But, Grayson just as a guy who was unafraid to attack the basket and also make plays for others. Say what you will about Dylan Brooks. And really, Dylan Brooks has been on fire this week. He's been a flamethrower from an offensive perspective. He's making incredible shots. His turnaround fadeaway right now is money. He literally looks like Kevin Durant at times.
Yeah, it's like the ugliest possible version of a KD shot, but yes.
Right. But Dylan Brooks is only, like, for as long as all of these injuries exist for the Suns, any smart coach is going to be more than happy about letting Dylan Brooks play Dylan Brooks ball, because they know they're basically engaging in an agreement there where Dylan Brooks is going to take a bunch of shots for himself, and if he scores 25 or 30 on good efficiency for Dylan Brooks, so be it, but he's not going to be making plays for others. He's going to finish with 1 or 2 assists, and you're going to bottle up Devin Booker in the process. And then, to your point, also the fact that Jordan Goodwin is often the guy who's one pass away. And he's just not an offensive threat. And also the fact that Nick Richards, who started in that game instead of Mark Williams, his field goal percentage, Nick Richards now has a lower field goal percentage on the season than Oso Guidaro.
Yikes.
Which is, that's dire if you're Nick
Richards. I didn't realize it was that bad, yeah.
Yeah, he's been really, really bad. He has a couple minutes at a time where he just makes a couple plays on the ball and looks like a classical energy big who can fill that role. But then he's just gifting them, bad pass turnovers.
The role has to be tiny.
And dropping passes on offense and just not finishing
offensive
well
fouls.
Enough at the rim. Offensive fouls.
Which are turnovers.
It can spiral. The bad decisions from Nick Richards can really quickly spiral into these disasters that just throw the entire team off any sort of momentum.
I think it's almost gotten to the point where I would say the Suns have a problem that they need to solve in a backup big. I don't know that they can. I don't know that there's a player that could be signed off the streets that would be better than Nick Richards, but I don't think that's completely out of the question. I think there's possible that there's a guy on the streets.
I think there's a guy who's maybe not on the streets, but in street clothes.
In Tempe now.
Tempe, who may be currently assigned to the Valley Suns. Is that game tonight?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. Again, this is another example of us recording on the night of a Valley Suns game. So Kaman Malawach is who we're talking about. Kaman Malawach is signed to the Valley Suns again for a game today. We have no idea how he's going to play in that game. I can only assume that I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning and see that he had 50 points, 20 rebounds, and 10 blocks. I know what you're going to say. You're going to say that Kaman Malawach would have had 10 turnovers against Houston if they played him.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he definitely would have.
I don't care.
But to be fair, everyone
I don't
did.
care. It's time.
Everyone did.
It's time. It's Nick Richards is not good. I'm sorry. And he's the third string center.
I understand. It's possible Kaman Malawach will be that person, but I also think replacing Nick Richards with someone who's playable is still something that they should try to prioritize if possible.
I don't see the
just
point.
Because of the Mark Williams potential injuries.
Yeah. Mark Williams is going to miss time. This is why it's so funny to me.
Should they start Oso if he does, though? I know that the Houston games are tough, but so Denver is the second night of a back-to-back. We're going to talk about the schedule later, but Denver is the second night of a back-to-back in a few games.
Is it OKC then Denver, or Denver then OKC?
I think so. I think it is OKC Denver. Yeah, Denver at home, but at OKC then at home versus Denver, 28th and 29th of November. So that's Friday and Saturday this week. So the question is what should they do? Well, first of all, should Mark Williams even play the OKC game? Should they just forfeit that one? Because there's probably no chance of them winning that
honestly,
one.
The Thunder are just the great. They're 17-1, and they have an average point differential of 15 points right now.
Yeah, if you think you're frustrated with how Devin Booker was being defended by the Houston Rockets. Give it 2 games.
I'm not saying strictly speaking punt the OKC game, but the OKC game is on the road and the Denver game is at home. I would just play Mark Williams in the Denver game. And
I would like to see Mark Williams against Jokic. They've only played twice. So I'd like to see that.
That makes sense because, the interconference stuff doesn't happen as often.
Interconference stuff, and he's injured a lot. So, yeah. It'd be nice to see him in that game in particular. Sacramento Kings game tomorrow. We're recording this on Tuesday. Before that, so we have an opportunity to see, but I'm curious. Like, I guess if Mark Williams doesn't play against the Denver Nuggets, they're going to start Nick Richards, and I don't blame them. But
also,
maybe it should just be
keep in mind with Denver that because Valanciunas is there now, it used to be like you could bank on 10 to 12 easy minutes against Denver against DeAndre Jordan.
Maybe that's the Malawach game. Yeah,
that doesn't exist anymore. That doesn't exist. Valanciunas is way more solid, and so they don't just drop off and die like they used to. This is why it's so crazy. Just going back to Malawach, how people pan the Mark Williams trade on the day of, being like, oh my God, they just invested so much in their top 10 center, and then they traded multiple picks for this. They won't even play him. It's 15 games into the season and they won't play him. We're talking about being afraid to play him over Nick Richards. I think is so silly. It's so silly. Let me pull up that Nick Richards field goal percentage for you, by the way.
Yeah, I'd like to know it, actually. I don't have it off the top of my head.
52%. 52% for Nick Richards.
Center, yeah.
And if that was 52% on some Nick Richard Jimbos, I wouldn't mind. I actually think he probably can shoot 52% on that little Jimbo of his from 16 feet out. But these are at the rim misses.
Yeah.
Plus the turnovers. So it's getting pretty dire with Nick, I think.
I've spent years chasing great coffee, and I finally found a roaster worth sharing, Alchemy Roast. Before I say anything else, you can get it shipped to you at alchemyroaster.com and use the promo code Timeline for 10% off today. Now let me tell you why it's worth it. Alchemy Roast is a small batch roastery in Metro Phoenix that treats coffee like a true craft. Ethically sourced beans, thoughtful roasting, and incredible flavor in every batch. I recently made espresso with their Colombian beans, and it was honestly the best cup of coffee I've made at home. What really sets them apart is their mission. They study every bean to highlight its best natural qualities and roast for cafes, offices, events, and everyday coffee lovers. Their philosophy, do good, get good in, give good out, shows up in everything they do. Fair trade sourcing, supporting small farms, organic practices, and eco-friendly compostable products. Full field to fork traceability. They're serious about quality and serious about leaving a good footprint. If you want to taste it for yourself, head to alchemyroaster.com and use the promo code Timeline today for 10% off your order. Support them, support us. alchemyroaster.com, promo code Timeline. You'll taste the difference. Back to how they're regarding Devin Booker in particular. I just wanted to go back to what you were saying about Grayson Allen, because what the entire season has been is it hasn't been a bunch of teams going, we're not going to guard Devin Booker like that. No, they all start the game sending 2 or 3 guys at Devin Booker, and then Grayson Allen hits 2 or 3 threes in the first quarter, and then they stop, right? And that's the main difference is teams have to adjust. I think the Minnesota Timberwolves game, they did eventually adjust on Devin Booker, but by then he was so in his head that he wasn't able to get out of it. But like most of the beginning of the season, most of the first 15 games of the season were actually pretty similar in that teams were still sending 2 or 3 guys at Devin Booker anytime he came around a screen, but Devin Booker very good at reading the floor and sharing the floor with a bunch of guys who are capable of making that quick second pass. And they were just getting open threes out of it. We remember, Dylan Brooks was hitting a lot of open catch and shoot threes before he had to become, I don't know, whatever he is now. Grayson Allen was hitting those catch and shoot threes. We know Royce O'Neal can do it. Ryan Dunn, usually the Suns smartly would try to put him on the weak side of wherever Devin Booker is. So that's the furthest away so that a defender can't really help off of him the same way. But once you start sharing the floor with multiple guys who don't need to be defended in the way that Devin Booker was, it's going to be more and more difficult. There are things that Devin Booker can do better. Just to talk about that conversation entirely. I don't entirely think forcing it constantly is what that is, but picking up the dribble a little bit too early, I think is something that is a problem. Now, if he doesn't pick up the dribble a little too early, the turnover problem might actually increase. Like, there might actually be more turnovers as a result of that. But with the offense and the offensive personnel that they're going to have on the floor right now, you have to factor in that the only way to win these games is to win a little bit ugly. So there's got to be maybe a little bit more forcing it. Maybe even one extra turnover a game. But if you can do that by getting to the paint a little bit more and focusing more on those drives to try to help opening guys up, that means it's tempting to split a double team or maybe even a little bit of grifting, right? Trying to get the free throws on your side, which the refs have not been on the Suns' side. But there are things that could be done a little better. And that's a problem not just for Booker, but for the coaching staff and the whole team.
Right. But it also explains at the same time, why they struggled so much against Houston, why they will struggle. I'm just here to tell you right now against OKC because they have to win these games ugly while they have so much offensive talent out.
They're built to play ugly.
They're built
Houston.
They're built to play ugly, and that's okay. And I know we talk so much about, how the guards on this team rebound and how everyone's hitting the floor and everyone's kind of playing above their weight class a little bit. And that's good to a point. But there is a point. You can get away with beating the San Antonio Spurs without Victor Wembanyama by just playing a little gritty and kind of out-muscling their wings and making them look small. Again, without Victor Wembanyama, that would have been a different game with Wemby in. Mm-hmm. You just can't do it with Houston. I mean, they are literally built to just be 6'9" at every position and kick the shit out of you. And it's like really hard to win an ugly on the margins basketball game at that point. So the other thing that would have had to happen is Colin Gillespie, bless his heart, he's playing really well, but he would have had to make 10 threes or something. Dillon Brooks, over the past 6 games, these Dillon Brooks numbers are hilarious, man.
Yeah.
26 points per game.
Crazy.
To 1.3 assists in the last 6 games for Dillon Brooks. He's taking 19.5 shots to 1.3 assists. On those shots, he's shooting 51% from the field, 35 from deep, 77 from the free throw line. It's pretty efficient basketball. But it's just pure play finisher stuff, right? Not a secondary play creator next to Booker who you can just kind of have him fill in the gaps and, then he's going to swing the ball around and the ball will have energy and find an open guy. No, if the ball goes to Dillon Brooks, he's looking for a tough ass shot and somehow miraculously he's making most of those. So it's credit to him, but you don't it's not a sustainable long-term offense. You don't want that to be the offense long-term. You need to get guys back who can attack the gaps. Jalen Green eventually, but Grayson Allen would help a lot in the meantime too. And as we said, Mark Williams in the dunker spot over Nick Richards would make a huge difference right now.
Just to really underscore what Dillon Brooks has been doing in those 6 games, he's shot 85 times, or 75 times, I should say. No, let me look at it again. 85 times. Of those 85 shots, 53 have been pull-ups. So off the dribble, creating his own. Only 32 have been catch and shoots. In the pull-up shots, he's shooting 58%. In the catch and shoots, he's shooting 34%, which are all threes. So you expect those to go in a little bit less. But, just a lot of self-creation from him in ways that, I keep telling myself this is not sustainable, and then he does it in another game. So I don't think this level of pure efficiency is sustainable, but he's done enough that you have to let him keep doing this game to game.
To be clear, I want doses of this Dillon Brooks throughout the season. When we eventually get everyone healthy again, knock on wood, if it happens, you want a little bit of this Dillon Brooks who can cook a guy, cook a mismatch for a possession or two, even if we're going to talk about the Suns potentially as a playoff threat, even potentially as part of a playoff offense eventually. It's good to have that versus, some of these guys who just can't create with the ball in their hands. Jordan Goodwin, who's a little bit more offensively challenged. Royce O'Neal, who they had running pick and rolls last game, right? It's
Rough.
it's good to have a guy who can create something out of nothing. But it can't be your only half-court offense. And right now it's sort of the Suns' only half-court offense. So it's just a really tough look.
If Malawich does start playing and it doesn't go well, you keep playing him. I mean, you kind of have to keep playing him. Maybe you reduce the amount of minutes he's playing.
Look,
you try to work him in a little bit slower. But I really think you can't afford to just keep playing. Nick Richards is just not playing very well right now. I really, I don't mean to like fully attack him. And he's not a scapegoat here, right? Because a lot of the team did not play very well in that game, including Devin Booker. But Nick Richards is a guy who might have to step in and start for 15, 20 or more games this season if they don't have other guys who could be capable of doing it right now. I just don't really know how they solve that problem. I'm really curious if that's something that they try to do relatively soon. They don't need to trade him. Right?
A wise man once told me that we're not judging this season in wins. We're judging it in success.
It's true.
And, success means multiple things. We need a little bit of development out of these young guys somehow. I understand if they're not going to be featured. Look at the Rockets with Reed Shepherd. Reed Shepherd comes out season 2. Everyone's like, he didn't play as a rookie. Is he actually good? He's good. Reed Shepherd is good. Newsflash. He's good.
Yeah, A.J. Mitchell for OKC.
A.J. Mitchell has been like their third or fourth most important player this year, and he just came out of nowhere.
Barely played last year.
Yeah. And, so those examples certainly happen. I mean, we're already seeing it a little bit, maybe if you squint, in the sense that, like, Rasheer Fleming played actual minutes against Houston. I guess that was probably just, by virtue of Ryan Dunn being out and other guys being out. But still, like, Jordan Ott could have given those 5 minutes to Nigel Hayes-Davis. Those 5 minutes he played to Rasheer Fleming at the beginning of the second quarter against Houston, where Fleming picked up 3 fouls because the refs hate rookies. And then he had to sit again.
I mean, 1 dumb foul and then 2 fouls that are, like, a little questionable at least. Yeah.
But it's like, Jordan Ott could have given those 5 minutes to a veteran like Nigel Hayes-Davis. He chose to give them to Rasheer Fleming, which I think if you squint is like a little bit of a sign that we're heading more towards the valuing development path. But like that's what we all want to see, right? We're not asking for these rookies to be playing 30 minutes. I don't want the health situation of this team to be sacrificed to the point where they need to be playing 30 minutes. But we need to see a little bit of those developmental dividends play out throughout the season, right? Or else I feel like we're losing track of the big picture a little bit with this team.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think Rasheer Fleming. I mean, it's true with Malawich too. But when Rasheer Fleming was out there, you just look at him running around and playing, and it's like that guy's huge, and they don't have a lot of guys that are huge. So just find a chance to figure it out with Fleming, and I think they are. Like they're clearly working him into the injuries aside. They're clearly working him into the rotation because of things that he's doing in practice or warm-ups or wherever they're seeing something that they believe could potentially translate to the floor. And I hope it does soon because it would be nice to have a guy 6'9" that can do the things that he does with arms as long as he does. Before we get to K-Ray, let's talk about the schedule. Sacramento tomorrow, so we're recording this Tuesday night. And then we talked about the back-to-back OKC Denver. Now, we talked about the opportunities to potentially, if Mark Williams can play, maybe he play or both of them. Maybe he plays both of them. But if he can't, maybe they choose Denver. I don't know. We'll see what they end up doing with that one. If you could just win one of those 2 games, which one would you pick? I mean, obviously, winning both would be fun, and the most likely scenario is they lose both. But
that's such a good question. I mean, look, I do think about narrative points more than I should.
Yeah,
and beating OKC on the road
that's
right
the
now.
One. It's the one.
OKC, I don't think it's caught up to a lot of people. I guess because it's Oklahoma City, but like they look like an all-time great team.
And without their second best player for most of the season, yeah.
And we're kind of at a point, we've been in such a good place in the NBA ever since KD ruined it for a little bit with the Warriors. But since then, we've been in such a good place with parity and a different team winning every year. I think Adam Silver maybe doesn't like that because it's bad for ratings, but I like it as a fan. OKC, I would kind of be shocked right now if they didn't repeat. Anything could happen. It's a very long season. They're so good. They are so good. And all due respect to Detroit having their little win streak in the Eastern Conference or whatever, OKC is on another level. So I think if you could go into OKC and win that game, that would be crazy.
The Suns would be the third best team in the East right now. I mean, just putting it out there. That I believe is also, for those who care, the last NBA Cup qualifier game. So
we have to, that's an NBA Cup game too.
Yeah, OKC is the best team in the NBA, but they're also the best team in the Suns group, and the only team that has, the edge on the Suns right now. I did look at the Cup standings recently, and the Phoenix Suns were the second best in their group, and their differential was like plus 23 or something like that. And then OKC, the best, their differential was like plus 70 something, like just an insane differential because they just destroy every team. But that game, I think I agree with you. I think it would be fun. Look, I want to win both. Beating Denver would be fun too, especially on the second night of a back-to-back. I do think there is like galvanizing wins, like wins that really matter for a team. The Minnesota Timberwolves obviously was one of those for the Suns this time, and I think beating OKC could be one that could bring them together a little bit. After that, Monday, December 1st, Los Angeles Lakers, Houston Rockets on that Friday. So the Suns will finally have a chance to rest before a Houston Rockets game, and that could be a game where, other than Jalen Green, maybe the Suns could be healthy for that one, and then, of course, KD could potentially play. That's at Houston, but they have the opportunity to rest before that. And then the last game before the Cup games, we'll see what happens in that little break, is another game against Minnesota at Minnesota, a game that Minnesota's probably going to get up for after the way they collapsed in the last one, which, by the way, they collapsed again recently or lost pretty embarrassingly, I think, to Sacramento, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so two things, because I want to talk about Sacramento in a minute. But with Minnesota, yeah, the cracks have been exposed in that team. So I would agree with you. Like, theoretically, on paper, a rematch against the Suns is a game they're going to get up for. But Minnesota's they're a playoff team in the Western Conference, but they're a vulnerable one. I'm sure they're going to do a great job guarding Devin Booker again, and I'm sure it's going to be a gritty game, but I think it's just one you circle on the calendar and get excited to watch if you're a Suns fan. And then just this upcoming game against Sacramento tomorrow is all the more important. Normally you wouldn't mark this one as super important, but because of the back-to-back against OKC Denver right after it, it kind of feels like you have to win the Sacramento game. Otherwise you're looking at maybe potentially a longer losing streak.
And then the Lakers and Houston, which are the other two top three teams in the NBA, top four teams, I should say, in the West. So
I do think
you
it's
got
funny.
all four of the top four seeds in the West, basically.
The Sacramento team is a catastrophic example of roster building in typical Kings fashion, right? Although I do think it's a little funny, like they bottomed out and then Sabonis. God, what is wrong with Sabonis? Is it a meniscus? Am I making that up? Partially torn.
I don't know.
Yeah, partially torn meniscus in his left knee. So Sabonis misses the last two games, and immediately they beat Denver and Minnesota, and now they're 5-13. So who knows what's going on there? I mean, they're going to play fast. They have guys who can get hot, and like terms of Levine and DeRozan and Russ, but that's a team that just shouldn't be able to guard you. So I hope at least one of Grayson or Mark Williams should play in this game, but I hope Grayson is back maybe for this game. I don't know if we've heard any updates, but you want to pressure a team like Sacramento and really make their lack of defense felt.
Yeah, and that could be a good get-back game for Devin Booker too. They don't quite have the same level of defense as the last few teams the Suns played. Either way, that's just a really tough, outside of Sacramento, fives, and then you have Golden State after the 2 games against Golden State after the Cup games. We don't know what's going to happen in that 10-day break where there are Cup games until we know. So once those games are scheduled, we'll talk about those at that point. But outside of all that, really tough time to schedule. Really hope they beat Sacramento. Be really helpful. Give us something to talk about on our Patreon podcast as well, which could be fun. But yeah, we're obviously going to be here covering all of it, so it could be really interesting. Anything else you got before we switch over to K-Ray?
No, just thanks again to K-Ray for coming on. It was a blast.
Yes, I want to mention, though, real quick, the reason we got connected with K-Ray is because we talked about the Boom Room stats, which we're going to talk about with K-Ray in just a second. But I just want to shout out the guy who's tracking those. His name is The Boom Room on Twitter. His @ is @Javon Fan Club. That's right, Javon Carter. So follow him if you want to see the updated statistics regarding the boom rooms throughout the season. Shout out to him for giving us those stats to cover on the podcast. But yes, we'll switch over to K-Ray now. I think you guys will enjoy this conversation. All right, very excited. Joining us, the voice of the Phoenix Suns on TV, Kevin Ray. K-Ray, how are you doing?
Guys, I'm great, and thank you so much for the invitation. It's been a minute.
You know, we've been talking about you on the podcast. We have this episode that we do every 10 or so games where we talk about stats that we cover on the podcast. Sam and I will bring up random stats, and Sam brought to the table last time all of your catchphrases. We have a user on Twitter and on Discord that they're really tracking statistics for your catchphrases, specifically the Boom Room catchphrase. So, of course, that led to us inviting you back here on the podcast to talk about everything you do for the Phoenix Suns. But before we get to that, I do want to ask you about something. And I don't mean to shame you for this, but you did shoot the first shot at the last Suns game.
I did.
And look, I just want to know, you're usually sitting courtside, right? Now all of a sudden you're on the court, you got a basketball in your hands, and it's like right before the game where everyone's in their seats. Like everyone's really in their seats at that moment, and then you have an opportunity to shoot the shot. I heard you talk about it on the broadcast. EJ pushed you out there basically.
Yeah.
Shameful behavior, if I could just jump in and say, for EJ to do that to you.
Exactly.
We need to get him out there as soon as possible.
What was it like getting out there and shooting that shot with all that pressure?
Well, look, it was quite the. I found out about 3:00 yesterday afternoon. That I was invited, if you will, asked, requested, and I laughed. And I won't say the person's name who requested, but somebody in the Suns media relations department, and I thought it was a joke because in our broadcast Friday. Because this is an ongoing promotion that we do, and it's great because money goes back to the Suns charity and foundation and everything. And so there's this promo card that I have to read, and EJ made the comment on Friday. He said, "Man, one of these days they're going to have us out there." And I'm like, "Well, they're not going to have me out there. You're the one that played 17 years in the association, So if anybody's going to go out there." And so when I get this text, I immediately laughed, thinking it was a joke. I'm like, did that fool put you up to this? Because we are like brothers. We really are. So I just assumed that he had put somebody up to this, and I started laughing. They're like, "No, really, we'd love for you to shoot the shot." I'm like, "So how many other people told you no?" And I didn't get a clear answer on that, so that told me everything I needed to know. I was a little further down the pecking order, and I was very reluctant to do it. But I know it's a big part of what we're doing, and I was like, okay, whatever. I'm in the middle of game prep, so I'm like, okay, whatever, I'll do it. I get down there, and I'm trying not to think about it. Going through my normal game prep routine and everything. And there was a part of me, and I look back now and really wish I would have, because I haven't picked up and shot a basketball in a minute. I'll just put it that way. I really wish I would have somehow gotten on the floor and picked up the ball and just taken a shot from somewhere while, the guys were out there warming up. I didn't. And so, we go through, and just to kind of fittingly give you our timeline, we go out onto the floor and we do our stand-up, the open to the telecast, right at 7:00 or 6:00 in this case. We wrap up, and then typically right after we wrap up, it's about 3.5 minutes, we wrap up and normally head directly back to the table. But in this case, we wrap up. I immediately get whisked back to the tunnel by, one of the people in marketing, take my jacket off, And so at that point, my mind kind of starts racing a little bit. I'm like, okay, all right, it's a free throw, right? But you get out there, and it's a whole different animal. You know,
lights, yeah.
You got the lights, you got the crowd. We got our guy Wheezy. You know, he's
hyping it up.
He's hyping it up and everything. And they just finished the introductions, and I get out there, and you've got the gorilla, all the the cheer squad and everything. And finally, I get a basketball in my hand. Like that's the first time I had touched the basketball, like right before I got there. And so I try to like kind of flip it up in the air just a little bit just to get the motion. And I get out there and it'll take like 4 dribbles and, clearly did not have the line of sight lined up. And yeah, I missed it. I full on missed it. So no excuses. And I do want to say, because I did see Espo posted something last night about K-Ray and Frank, because Frank Kaminsky shot it on Friday.
Yep. And
Frank apparently said, he blamed the dress shirt.
Yes, he did.
For the record, I never said, Espo or anybody else, that it was my dress shirt.
Yeah.
I had the shirt tucked in, probably should have untucked it.
It does make it harder, yeah.
Yeah. But
EJ made that he made that excuse.
but yeah. So maybe it was EJ that he heard say that, but those words never came back. I told people, I was like, yeah, I just flat out missed it. So
do you want another chance to do it, or do you not want to ever do that again? Because I guess you have an opportunity to redeem yourself.
I think they should keep putting you out there until every home game in a row.
I mean, I wouldn't mind a chance to redeem myself. I would like a little more notice so that I could at least get a shot or 2 up, so that it doesn't look quite so ugly. I mean, I like to think of myself as a semi old athlete. I did not represent ourselves very well. So at some point down the line, maybe they'll call me back, but who knows?
I mean, Frank, to your point, Frank missed his.
Amari
was up there. Yeah, Amari missed his. So, I see no shame if you've got
only
these
2
10, 15-year NBA pros. Yeah, I don't know if you saw that they've been tracking. They're 2 for 10.
Yeah, but it is. I'm telling you, it is a whole different animal when you get out there. Like you say, you got the speakers blaring and Wheezy pumping up the crowd and. I mean, having been there on the floor for all these big games, you don't think about it, and then all of a sudden you're standing on the floor, and you're like, "Wow, okay, this is this is a very different dynamic."
You're mentioning these big games. I do want to talk to you just about some of the improbable stuff that we've seen out of the Suns this year. Specifically, like back to the Minnesota game, which was just a few days ago. But I have to ask you about this before it's old news. You've been doing the broadcasting thing for a while. It's fair to say, right?
Yeah, how long has it been?
WNBA, NFL. You've done plenty of NFL games in your career as well. A 9-point last-minute comeback against Minnesota last Friday, I guess it was. Where does that stand out in your career of games you've personally broadcasted, of some of the most improbable stuff you've seen happen on a court or a field or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, just considering the time and the score, I mean, I would literally have to put it number 1 just because of the insanity of it, right? Because, and I know all these sports books will show you at a certain point in the game, Minnesota's win rate was probably 99.9? 0.99? So that in of itself, I've never called a game, football, basketball, whatever, that the opponent's win rate was that high, and the odds for a comeback were so wildly improbable. And just to see the way that it happened, and admittedly couldn't have happened to a nicer crew, considering they were clowning on the Suns' schedule a couple of weeks ago, looking at the soft schedule and everything, and I was like, that's funny, because Minnesota has a bottom 5 schedule, and you've yet to beat a team over 500, but who's counting? I don't get petty often, but sometimes you raise my ire a little bit when you start pulling stuff like that out.
You really nailed the call at the end of that last game. I think you really captured just how insane the end of that game was. I thought you did a great job saying, talking about how the Suns pulled it off. And there's something really exciting, I think, about when a team has no timeouts too, right? Because it goes directly from the Colin Gillespie shot to the Julius Randle shot. So you have the opportunity to keep that momentum going on your call, and there's no, stop and breakdown. You really can just build it up very Kevin Harlan esque, but it's just very, very exciting. Is that now when you think back of like big moments that you've called for the Phoenix Suns in the past? Are there any other moments that come to mind that are similar to that?
Well, I don't know that there's any similar to that.
It's very similar.
Just because you guys saw the record, just since 22, it was 3,635 or something like that. I mean, when I saw that number later that night, I was like, wow, that's just absolutely off the charts. None that would fall into that category. Getting to call Book's record set, scoring record mark last year in Portland, really, really special and memorable to me just because of what, Book has meant to this organization. And he's just such a class act. I mean, getting to deal with him from an 18-year-old and to see him carrying himself now and the way he carries about the organization, the city, the state, those are just the guys that you root for. So any of his big shots, certainly fall in there. Going back to the bubble, his game winner against the Clippers, those are the ones that that stand out.
The way this team plays right now, it was a talking point, obviously, from the front office going into the season, but like it really is kind of incredible the way that they've embraced it, and the way that they've actualized it, just in their win-loss record in a way that I think. Honestly, even a lot of us fans weren't quite expecting. It's interesting, K-Ray, because there's not a one-to-one relationship between teams that are fun to watch and teams that are good. In NBA history, there's tons of examples of teams that are young and athletic and they get out and run, but maybe they're sloppy with the basketball. They rack up a lot of losses.
Yeah.
How does it feel from your perspective? This team right now, at least so far, is a team that is doing both, right? They're getting steals, they're getting dunks, like way more of both of those categories compared to last year. So for you, from the commentator's booth, must be much more exciting to call. But at the same time, it's much more exciting to call just because they're winning games. They're a good team. They look like a playoff team in the Western Conference as of today. So how are you embracing all of that?
Yeah, I mean it's been so refreshing. First off, and I try to caution myself to make too many comparisons and to look back. But look, last year's team was no fun. It's just that's just the straight facts of it all. And Matt has said as much. Josh, Brian, they've all admitted it, which again has been great. They're not trying to brush it under the rug and pretend last year didn't happen. They acknowledged that it was they took a couple of swings and misses, didn't work out. But I love the fact that they went in and completely they hit reset, but not in the way that I think any of us expected. And look, I think probably to a man in private, if you ask them, this team is probably overachieving a little bit. But when you look at the core, and I've thought about this, especially over the last couple of weeks, the way that these guys have been winning games. How many times, guys, and it doesn't matter whether it's NBA, NFL, Major League Baseball, whatever, so often, general managers and owners lose sight of how important chemistry, but the personal makeup of a guy. What's he about? What's he about off the floor, right? It's not just about statistics. It's not just that, he can shoot 40% from three. He can shoot 50% from, the field or higher. He can do this. But what is he about personally? What has he been through? And it's one of the things that I applaud this organization for stepping back and saying, you know what? We're going to hit reset and we are going to create, as Matt has called it, the Suns DNA. And you have to check a number of these boxes in the Suns DNA if you were going to be a part of this organization. And when you come on board, they reiterate it and repeat it so that you know. There is, there's no gray area with this. And I think that's really what we're seeing. And in some ways, this team has, a little sprinkles, a few samplings of what we saw with that group with Cam, that young group in 2019-20, before they really took off in 21, because they're having fun, but they're working hard. They're being coachable. But this team, even more so than that club, is playing at a level on the defensive end. Look, I've been around, Suns for a long time. I don't remember the last time I saw a Suns team defend like this on a nightly basis. Not every big game that rolls in, not every fourth or fifth game, but like every night. They are busting their ass on the defensive end. And last night was a great example. Shot the ball poorly. It was looking ugly early on. But because they stayed true to their defensive principles, they knew eventually the shots would start falling and things would start turning. And that's exactly what we saw in that second half.
Let's talk about it. You got Booker goes boom. We got, what do we got? We got brings the boom, right? That's one of the other ones. And then, of course, we got boom room. Takes him to the boom room, right? That's what it is.
Yeah.
The big debate on our podcast a couple weeks ago that sort of prompted this discussion and maybe this invitation to you in the first place was brings the boom versus takes one to the boom room, a.k.a. When does it have to be a solo activity versus, when is it reserved for bringing someone else? You have to have a partner to bring them to the boom room, right? That's what we were saying.
Yeah.
It has to be an invitation that someone else accepts to take this poster.
Right. Basically, and it's so funny because I had kind of done this in my mind, but in terms of the evolution of it, because I rolled it out. I don't know. I think I rolled it out like 3 years ago, and I'd been kind of playing around with some different ideas and thoughts, and because we all love Mike Breen's bang, and that is his, and I've never wanted to be a play-by-play guy that's filled with catchphrases, but I also know that being a hometown broadcaster, I know that fans do like some of that. And so it kind of got me thinking, what can I create? And I've had a few, over the course of the time that I've been doing the games, but just kind of started playing around with it, and I dropped it out one night. If I wish I had a picture the first night that I threw out the boom room, because I'd been doing the boom.
I remember that. EJ laughed, right? He loved it.
He loved it. I just wish I would have had like a camera to have the look on his face, right there courtside. Because his head snapped around to the left, like, what did you just say? But he couldn't stop laughing because he loved it so much. So I was like, okay, I think we got a winner here.
So it's got to be a poster, right? If it's
So essentially, what I did, like I said, I've kind of had some of this rattling around in my head for a while. But after you guys had posted that and extended the invitation, I put together a very basic, rudimentary, what I call it, the boom call scorecard, if you will.
All right.
So maybe I'll send the Word doc to you guys, and you can share some of it.
All right.
So yes, as you mentioned, the biggest kind of question mark and conundrum for some of the fans, because I will get folks who reach out to me. Well, why didn't he get to go to the boom room? Espo on 2 or 3 occasions has said, doesn't that qualify a Booker in the boom room? Well, the reality is, the boom room, taken to the boom room, yes. Part 1 must involve the defender at or near the basket. So you are either under the basket, like we've seen a number of, just like the other night. I mean, I was so ready. I had the boom room ready for Rudy Gobert when Ryan was flying in there.
Oh,
I wanted so bad to bring that one out.
Yeah.
But that is a prime example of what a reservation to the boom room requires. There must be a body, a body of a defender involved. Occasionally, I think I've had one or two where the defender might be trailing a little bit, but it's typically straight on or something coming from the side where the defender, has a chance to maybe block it, but, the Suns player is too strong and is able to put it down. And the other part, too, of it is the level of ferocity. And as I've started to call him, Ryan Bad Intentions Done, because every dunk of his, he is seeking to destroy somebody.
That's right. Yeah, it can't be just like a rim grazer, right? You can't you can't break it out for that. Yeah, that's a good point.
No,
you can't pad the stats, And now that we know that the stats are being tracked, by the way,
right?
I want to know who. Like, we need to petition our part here, Mike and I. We need to petition. There's the Dan Marley Hustle Award. Everyone loves that award. We do our own version of it. Everyone loves that award. You need to give out your own award. Maybe it's not on the same night. Maybe it's the second to last, the penultimate home game of the year, where you give out the Kevin Ray Explosive Player of the Year award to the guy with the most boom rooms officially.
Yeah. We'll get some T-shirts made up.
You let us know who in the organization we need to talk to get the trophy made, to market the materials.
Yeah. Well, you guys have an incredible following, so you can, since we're talking about it here on the podcast, you can kind of sprinkle it out there. Once we drop that, we'll see if we can get some traction behind it, because it would definitely be fun. But and so the brings the boom, same part one. You're talking about the ferocity or the viciousness, if you will, something highlight worthy. Speed, strength of the slam. Maybe a moment in the game, the impact of the dunk, and a momentum changer. Those are oftentimes a bring the boom. Fast break dunk, where it's a really emphatic slam. And then when I just, throw out a boom, that's typically just going to be a big shot. Something in the clutch,
right?
Something at the end of the quarter. Certainly a game winner, although didn't call boom on Gillespie's. Most of them are going to be a long-range shot. So not always a three-pointer, but something along those lines. And then, so like I say, kind of a momentum changer. And occasionally I'll throw out a boom in the first half, not very often. But again, if you got a shot clock situation, Suns are on a run, I might sprinkle in a boom. The biggest thing for me is to just to somewhat keep the fans guessing a little bit. I don't want it to feel like, that's certainly a boom. Because we've had there's been a handful of dunks that I'll just say, slams it home or hammers it down, something like that. Just kind of keeps people on their toes.
Were you aware that there's a bar in Phoenix called the Boom Boom Room?
I was not aware until afterwards, and it was, I'm trying to remember who it was that shared that with me.
Maybe it was Bob, because I may have tweeted about it at one point in the past. But
okay, maybe it was. Yeah, maybe it was Bob, and I was like, "What? You got to be kidding me!"
I'm curious if I wonder if they know. I may have to. I've never been there. I may have to stop by that bar and ask them.
Maybe we'll
a watch
put together
party.
A little watch party there at the Boom Boom Room. So I do know that our usual statistician for home games, Jim Brewer, is great. He's been doing stats for us at home for a lot of years. Great guy. And last year, I think it was right between Christmas and New Year's, I see this little bag, like a little gift bag sitting at my broadcast position, and I picked it up, and I just assumed, because EJ will oftentimes get fan mail and stuff, and so they typically will keep like a stack of letters sitting there for EJ, and so I just assumed it was something for him. And so I just kind of slid it to the right a little bit, and Jim comes walking up, and he goes, "That's yours, by the way." And I was like, "What?" And I was like, "Oh." I go, "Who dropped it off?" And he just kind of raised his eyebrows. And I'm like, You? So I pull it out. It's a T-shirt. There's a recording studio called the Boom Room.
Oh.
So I've got a T-shirt from some recording studio. I think it's back east somewhere called the Boom Room. So, it is. It's not mutually exclusive here to the Suns broadcast. There are boom rooms and boom rooms clearly in a lot of locales, but I believe that we've got the only audio/video version of it.
There you go.
I've never been to the boom room in Phoenix, but I know where we're handing out that trophy at the end of
That's
the
right.
Exactly.
We'll make sure
That's
of it.
right.
We'll make sure that someone gets this audio. K-Ray, before we let you go here, I just want to end on it's a big road trip coming up for the Suns. I'm sure when you guys are on the road too, you really feel to a certain extent like you're in it with them. And as you know, these are challenging games coming up. Everyone's talking about it. OKC, Denver, Golden State. I'm missing one or two, maybe the Lakers, Minnesota.
Yeah.
I think just a lot of these teams coming up between now and Christmas are going to be very challenging. What are you hoping to see from the Suns, or what are you hoping to see maybe they learn about themselves over these next few weeks?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that we have seen is this team, and more importantly, this coaching staff. I can't say enough, guys, about this coaching staff, starting with Jordan. I came away so impressed the first couple of times that I met him, and this was before training camp. Just in talking to him, and look, when you get the seal of approval from Steve Nash, who, let's face it, is a basketball savant. But when you get the seal of approval from Steve Nash, that told me a lot right there. But the other thing in talking to Jordan and watching him assemble his staff and seeing Steve Clifford come into training camp, and now he's part of the organization. Tom Thibodeau spent several days there at training camp. This is a guy who recognizes that he's been around basketball for a minute, but he also doesn't pretend to know what he doesn't know, and he is open to absorbing and taking all of that great education and information from those guys who have they have seen and been in virtually every situation. He's empowered his assistant coaches, and I think that, because of that, and we talk about the players having a high care factor. The coaching staff has a high care factor for the players. And that's why that is a big part, I think, of why you're seeing these guys bust their butts every single night, because they know that this staff cares about them, both as people and as players. You look at the injury situation. They're not going to rush anybody into coming back. They're not going to put guys in a compromised position. Mark's not going to play tonight. I felt pretty convinced that he was not going to play tonight because they've had a plan, and they're not going to deviate from that plan just because, the general public and all the other fans say, well, gosh, he only played X minutes last night. Why can't he play tonight? They're sticking to their plan because this is what they and Mark and his agent agreed to, and they're not going to go back on their word. And I know kind of a long-winded answer to your question, but I think what we've seen is this team is going to compete every single night, and because of that, they're going to have and will win some of these games that they will not be favored in. Because how many times, guys, did we see over the last couple of years the Suns were the better team, right? On paper, they were the better team, but when you play hard, your care level is high. You're grateful and love that you get to slip on an NBA jersey every night. You're going to win some of those games, even on the road, because some nights those veteran teams, the teams with more experience, just don't have the juice to keep up with you for 4 quarters. And that's what I've really been just ecstatic about, is knowing that they'll walk into another arena and say, okay, we might be outmanned, and clearly they're going to be outmanned tonight. They're going to be outmanned probably for the next 3 or 4 games. But they believe, look, we've got everything we need to compete, and if we go out and play hard and compete, we'll see what happens when the final buzzer sounds.
Good stuff, K-Ray. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us, and I look forward to listening to you for the rest of the season. Good luck with the rest of the season as well.
Yeah, and listen, thank you guys so much. Look, I know that every other team, every team has their their followers and people who do podcasts, but I feel really fortunate here in Phoenix. We've got a lot of really good people following the team. You guys do an amazing job churning out the content, both in the podcast and your stats, all that. So I just want to say kudos to you as well.
Thank you so much, K-Ray.
Appreciate that. That's so nice.
Yeah, you got it, guys.